which is interesting. He doesn't play. It doesn't avoid a critical. He doesn't avoid theory. He plays normal chess. Puts the knight on e2. That's what he did against Karyakin some time ago. I think he had about the same position against Karyakin, not the same. But that's he played with knight e2, the classical Rubinstein variation in Nimzowitsch. Putting knight on e2 gives white a little bit more of a dynamic options. And a classical setup, but still a little bit special because the knight is on e2. It's very hard to get an advantage against the Nimzo-Indian, I must say. So fantastic invention by Aaron Nimzowitsch, who wrote the famous book in 1925, My System. And that's the things he wrote there is still valuable today. That's the basic. It was him that created the basic. What we take for granted today wasn't for granted then. But Magnus will take back with the pawn, and we have a classical single pawn structure, which is interesting always because it's either is strong or is good. Magnus normally likes to play against the isolated pawn. He likes to play against weaknesses. An isolated pawn is a weakness, but it opens up for active piece play, and that's what Magnus is starting with now. Next move is queen d3 to queen d3 will come, and now he has to make a decision. g6, knight g6, something. Knight g6, because I was just going to say if he plays g6, he would really miss the knight bishop on a5 back on the king's side. But this knight g6 makes it interesting because it's very tempting somehow to chase it away with h4 and h5, but even if he succeeds in that, the knight can just withdraw to f8 and it will be no mate on h7. So if there is no mate on h7, what is there then? Then you have to start thinking about fighting for the square in front of the isolated pawn, which is the important one according to Nimzowitsch. In the isolated pawn structures, the square in front of the pawn is the important one, not the isolated pawn in itself. It took on d5, it took back on d4, and now we're getting a little bit dry pawn structure, I'm afraid. It's not Caruana's fault. That was possible to play the bishop to f4, cool, because it's mate on h7. It might be something for white, not much. But if he managed to trade the black squared bishops, because then he theoretically has the better bishop, the one on the white squared bishop, the white squared bishop is theoretically slightly better because it's on the opposite side of this pawn on d4. But this is a draw, to put it simple. Anything else would be very, very surprising. Which which draws my attention to the left of the screen here to see if there is anything else that might be of interest. A classical counter between Aronian and Anand. I don't know how many times they met each other, but that's many. The Magnus game is still on the board. I've seen Karpov winning structures like this. Now there is something actually, because it is actually a good knight, or not that good at the moment, but it is a bad bishop on c6. Karpov managed to beat Kasparov with that team, but here it shouldn't be possible, to put it simple, because there is only one weakness, and that's the one pawn on d5. And basically you need two weaknesses. Well, that's what they say. At least you need more than one. It's not much to play for Magnus here. I think I will switch to Anand Aronian quickly. It's more interesting there, because I just see a knight has returned to b8, and then this knight is going to win the pawn on c6. So it seems like there are lots of bad pieces for black here. Horrible bishop on h7, and so on. Well, not so on. It's basically the one on h7 that is a weak one. But it doesn't matter if you're pawn up, and Anand is a pawn up. This is just a pawn up. So it seems like a5 wasn't that obvious. Gives black a weakness. Okay, this is quite interesting actually, because here anything can happen again. I wasn't sure about that a5 move. Just created a weakness for himself, but maybe the pawn was weak on a6 too. Is Aronian playing a very impressive game here positionally? Because the pieces are active, but he is a pawn down, which is a big, well, to me it would have been a big issue. But the returning with the queen, returning with the knight too, then the strategy must be just to stay there and hope for better times to appear later. But now I think we're playing, well, I wouldn't say true results, because anything can, Aronian has no time left. He spent all his time and he's a pawn down. That's especially the timing is the issue here. I remember Jan Timman said to me when I was young that 1 minute on the clock in Blitz is like one pawn. So if you sacrifice a pawn, or if you have a minute ahead on the clock, you can sacrifice a pawn actually. Which is a bit strange because it's so different things. But now I'm beginning to well, I was beginning to like White's position until I saw rook c6, because that rook was a bit misplaced on f6. But still, black is just a pawn up still, and now it's 2 pawns in the center. Okay, will be over very soon. I think black is just winning here. If that is possible, then it's over. Knight f4, cool. It's mate if he takes with the knight, and it's the queen and priest if he takes with the bishop. So that's it. That's over. That was a cool finish. But playing so slowly is a bad sign from Aronian. You cannot play that slowly, and so there are a few players that has not impressed here, I would say. But we have to go back to Magnus' game, because somehow it seems like he's winning. How did that rook end up on b5? Incredible, incredible. It's a completely winning position for White. You can just take on, just send the queen to just take on b5 whenever he wants to, and send the king to c3. He doesn't even have to. He can send the king to a3 and up to a5, a4. Cool. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's possible to defend that rook. We return to the Magnus game. We thought it was uninteresting, but then we come back, and then it's just one for Magnus. He doesn't really have to take it. Actually, he can do anything. And that's it, I guess. He resigns. So he won, actually. That's kind of 1-0 in the World Championship match. They say that Caruana has a good grip on Magnus because he's beaten him a few times, but Magnus has beaten Caruana many more times, actually. On the Norway chess.no, on the organizers' chess site, they have a fantastic statistics site here. You can click on the player, and you can click on who's they played against, and then you will see that Magnus has won 40% of the games, and they have played 53 games in normal chess, and Magnus has won 40% of them. He's lost 21 of them, which is quite many. For I don't think there are anyone who's beaten Magnus that many times as Caruana But Corana loses so many games against Magnus, so Magnus is clearly having the upper hand here. But I'm really curious about how that rook ended up on b5. I think I have to go back a little bit. So here we ended up in this. The knight is bad, the bishop is bad. Well, the main thing here is how on earth did the rook end up on b5? It's suicide. Corana is on a suicide mission. And now it's too late. He has to return as quickly as possible. He didn't, and now it's actually trapped, the rook. Now it's too late. Oh, he must have felt quite stupid here, getting that knight to rook on. That was really stupid of Corana. But it is a little bit. The position is slightly difficult, but not. It should be holdable, of course. That was special, but it happens often with Corana. It's my impression that it makes strange things. And still, he's number 2 in the world, which is quite impressive. That's what I think about Magnus also sometimes, that he's also sometimes playing a little bit boring, a little bit slow and so on. And so he's got good potential, is what I've been thinking about him. The day he plays really sharp, like we know he can, and play with lot armed with all the theory, we know he can. How strong couldn't he be then? But there's certainly potential in Caruana too, because he loses quite many games in quite stupid ways, I would say. When he stops doing that, what would his rating be then? So, when there's 2 rounds left, Magnus is in the lead. No, is he? He is. Because Corana only drew against Ding Liren. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave drew against Karyakin. We saw Anand beat Aronian. Wesley So beat Mamedyarov. We haven't really looked at that one. But I have a feeling, I think that this is bad news, with Mamedyarov doing quite badly in the Blitz, because he's got 2.5 points. Ding Liren and Aronian has done even worse with only 2 points. But Mamedyarov has an excuse. He has toothache. Will that be so serious that he will withdraw from the tournament tomorrow is the big question. I hope not, because I don't think the organizers have any replacement actually. So we might end up with a tournament with only 9 players, which is a bit of a pity. But I don't know what to be done about toothache, but we need a dentist. I'm sure the organizers are taking care of that. I actually heard Kjell Manland talked about calling his own dentist, and was a bit worried about disturbing him on a Sunday. What would happen the next time he went to the dentist then? But it's not every day a dentist gets a chance to draw out the tooth of a world class chess player, I would say. So hopefully he can be there when needed. But at least there is very close in the lead. 4 players with 4.5 points. Vachier-Lagrave chasing only half a point behind that. So it's no surprise that Magnus is there. He hasn't impressed, I must say. He hasn't played brilliant chess or anything. He's just taken the chances that has been given to him. Anand seems to have impressed a little bit, as far as I could tell. I haven't been able to follow Hikaru Nakamura games, but he's always strong in blitz. Wesley So seems to be in good mood. He seems very relaxed. I saw him playing a simultaneous exhibition on a shopping mall here yesterday. It was clock simul, 15 minutes against 15 players. Both players had 15 minutes, which is 1 minute in average per player for Wesley So. And even then, he was very relaxed. He walked slowly, calmly around and